On this episode of Urban U, the CUNY Skates Club is building community on wheels. What is public interest technology? A movement shaping tech for the public good. And CUNY is helping lead the way. In our CUNY Authors series, a professor from John Jay traces the history of protest and the voices shaping our democracy. And at 96 years old, a City College alum reflects on a lifetime of contributions to major scientific breakthroughs from Apollo to today. This is Urban U.
It's a feeling of being free. When you first start skating, it's about balance, and it's kind of funny because it's like life. Like in the beginning, when you're born, like you don't walk right away. You need to find your balance and start walking like that. And it's similar to skating, and it really teaches you resilience and like not giving up. And that's kind of like in life. Like you have to keep going even if like you fall.
Life lessons these CUNY students found on the streets of the city.
Skating culture is very reliant on the community you build.
Community Lehman College senior David Guallpa built 2 years ago after moving to the city from Florida and starting a school skateboarding club called CUNY Skates.
I moved here right before I went to Lehman College, so I didn't really know anyone, and it was during the pandemic. And I basically didn't know what to do, so I was like, let me try skating. You know, it's like something you could do by yourself. You don't need to be with anyone else. So I started skating, and then I went to Lehman and I saw people skate as well around. And I was like, maybe this might be a cool club that I could start. And then people started joining.
And now CUNY Skates boasts almost 100 members from all over the CUNY landscape.
We have Queens College, City College, City Tech, and Brooklyn College. A little bit of everywhere, you know?
I like the emotion I get from it. Even though I can fall and scrape or break something, I don't know, but it's pretty good. When you get better at it, it's pretty cool.
Use your arms. You heard? For balance.
If you think this looks like fun, but you don't know how to skateboard, no worries. This club is open to all CUNY students.
It just takes one step, you know, and we could for sure teach you. Like I've taught people who don't know how to skate. And like we would teach them like in the grass area, we'll put the skateboard on the grass and they could just stand on it to find the balance and get the feel of it. And then later on, little by little, they'll get it.
The club meets 2 days a week at local skate parks. And if you don't have a skateboard to start, it's okay. They have extras.
The community I feel like I'm building in the club is like something that is really strong and powerful because like there's different people from all sorts of places. And we're all coming together to do one thing, which is skate.
To connect with this community, find CUNY Skates on Instagram. For Urban U, I'm Susan Junn.
Taking a training program like Bronx Community College's automotive technology program, we have a 2-year degree, a 1-year certificate. We'll cover all the foundational knowledge that you will need to succeed. Our graduates, they go to work for BMW, Toyota, Ford, Chrysler, and they go to work for Nissan dealers.
Here at BCC, I'm having a wonderful time. I always love to come here, experience new things every day. Also excited that I'm going to have a job in the future in the automotive programs.
The automotive service industry is certainly a lucrative career. Every so often we bring in representatives from local dealerships, local garages, and we have what are called meet and greets. A lot of times students get hired right then and there.
It's a course that can help me set up a good job for myself, and not just for myself, but for my fellow classmates.
The way technology is reshaping our world brings both excitement and fear. Lately, a movement is galvanizing to steer tech towards the public good. It's dubbed public interest technology, and CUNY's been at the forefront.
In 2019, CUNY became a part of a national network of colleges and universities that were aimed at trying to create an interdisciplinary field and a community of practice called public interest technology. So we lovingly call that PIT.
New America, a liberal think tank, defines PIT as the study and application of technology expertise to advance the public interest, generate public benefits, and promote the public good. PIT researchers study how tech can empower humans. Technologists build such tools. Tools that, for instance, map street complaints or connect citizens with government data.
In a way, that's what we see public interest tech as a vehicle for people to feel empowered, to have more understanding of what's happening in their local neighborhoods, in their local areas, to then also be able to advocate for needed changes, to be innovative and creative ideas of how do we support more participation in community improvement.
The Reverend Dr. Katie Cumiskey, who teaches psychology and women, gender, and sexuality studies at the College of Staten Island, has won grants to develop the PIT Lab at CUNY, an institute that organizes participation, discussion, and resources. It's part of the growing Pitt University network.
And so CUNY was one of the first universities in that first cohort of 23. We're now up to 63 colleges and universities across the country that are all focused on trying to create a broader narrative of tech development to be inclusive of tech that has impact on society.
This winter, the CUNY Pitt Lab organized a pop-up, a symposium of Pitt projects at the Oculus, the transit hub at the World Trade Center. It involved Beta NYC, a tech civic organization, and a dynamic cohort of forward thinkers.
And so we have a project emerging from Beta NYC around helping New Yorkers prepare for flooding, a group called Mobile Pathways, which will be presenting their technology that they've developed to help folks who are pursuing asylum cases.
The pop-up featured a range of projects, such as YourPeer.NYC, which helps New Yorkers find social services, and Space to the People, which invites the public to participate in future design concepts on Earth and in space. Cumiskey says that while artificial intelligence raises so many ethical concerns, it's still worth seeing how technology can be used for civic good.
Even though artificial intelligence now is maybe oversaturating the marketplace, let's say, of tech, those questions should be applied to how tech touches our lives in every aspect of our lives.
Looking ahead, there's some discussion in these civic tech circles around making public interest technology a college major. For Urban U, this is Shannon Ayala.
Still up on Urban U, the story of a City College alum who helped shape 20th century science. But first, how has protest shaped the rights we have today? Here's that story.
Protesters help make the country what it is. The Declaration of Independence is a protest document. The last line of the First Amendment is one that people don't talk about. We have the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So we have the right to complain to our government and demand that they fix it. The fact that this country has not just increased the rights that people have based on protest, but people who were not even considered to be represented or protected by the Constitution protested their way into the reality of their rights. Protest has worked for all different types of groups, all different people, religions, ethnicities, genders. We wake up embraced in protest without even knowing it.
One day stronger! One day longer! One day stronger!
People have unions today because they were protesting their working conditions. They were protesting the amount of money they were being paid. And being a part of a union, even forming a union, is an act of protest. Women gained the right to vote through protest. They also gain the right to have equality in the workplace through protest. I think about seniors. There used to be a forced retirement at 65. We don't even think about the fact that we don't have to retire at 65 anymore, and that's because people protested enough to say, why should I be forced out of my job? I think people want movie version protests where we protest on Friday and the change happens on Monday morning, and that's not the way protest usually works. Think about how long women took to get the right to vote. From 1848, when they met in Seneca Falls, up to 1920, when women finally gained the right to vote. So sometimes it can happen quickly, but usually it's going to take time. Protesters are in danger today. When we protest, it's saying to the corporation, it's saying to the people in the neighborhood, the community, wherever, the government, what you're doing is wrong, and I don't like it, and I want it changed. What they're hearing on the other side is, my value system is being attacked. I'm being challenged based on who I am, and why can't you just stay in your place, person who's protesting? That's going to, in many instances, lead to confrontation. That confrontation could be physical. Law enforcement is supposed to protect the protester. Today we have federal law enforcement attacking the protesters. We have local law enforcement not knowing which side they're supposed to take. And so all of this has put the protester in more danger. When you start talking about patriotism, and even those parents perhaps who have children who are fighting in a war, then you have protesters protesting the war. It becomes a very emotional experience. And so people then will, attack the protesters verbally or try other ways if they are feeling that they are being attacked or that their loved one's life is thought to be meaningless or the country is under attack. These are emotional responses. There were protests against the National Guard in Los Angeles, in Chicago. What I think the protests did was to make them feel uncomfortable, that they were not needed. The people who are protesting can say, you're going beyond what you're supposed to do here. We don't want you here. You had the governors, you had mayors, you had local politicians. So there was not just the people in the street protesting, there were also, leaders, political leaders in those cities who were saying that this was not necessary and you shouldn't be here.
News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities.
Protest that uses strategy is much more effective. And so to have those politicians as well as the people pushing against the incursion of the National Guard, I think made it more effective. When people are protesting, it's an investment, not just in what they're gaining in present time, but what's going to be earned for future generations. And then each generation has to then start again. We all have to figure out what role we're going to play. And ignoring it is not going to make the situation go away. I know that it's scary to have someone lose their life in a protest, especially in the way in which it happened with Renee Good. But I also think that even more people felt compelled to go out and protest in her name. And that's how protest works. And I'm hoping that when people read my book, that they'll see that they had less than we did. So many generations had less. All three branches of government against them, society against them. They had no money, and yet they stood up against what seemed to be insurmountable odds to say, I count, I'm a human being, and I deserve more than how I'm being treated. And that's how we're able to be where we are today. People have to decide how they're going to take their stand, when they're going to do it, and just know that our democracy is not going to exist by good wishes alone.
My name is Mahogany. I am from Brooklyn, New York.
My name is Don Portillo. I grew up in the South in Arkansas.
My name is Grace Thomas, and I'm from Dallas, Texas.
I feel like journalism is needed more now than ever. I think that there's a lot of information, and even I feel information fatigue at times, but I think that we still need people who are setting the record straight. As a society, we just need to be rooted in something bigger than all of us, and we need the storytellers to continue that.
I think the role that journalism should be playing is elevating the voices of those that can't do it themselves. When I'm thinking about my community specifically, I come from a family of immigrants, and so especially right now, there's a big immigrant population that is scared to make their voice heard.
Giving a voice to people who feel underrepresented, that is like the main way that I think journalism can bring power to the people. I never really thought of journalism as a career or writing as a career, really anything in this space, because I didn't know anyone who looked like me in the space.
One thing I'm really excited for is the data journalism courses. Coming here and realizing that there's an actual data journalism program where I could combine kind of my English writing background with data was like the coolest thing ever to me.
I think journalism matters because journalism is knowledge and knowledge is power.
And I think change happens when you educate people on issues and you kind of empower them with that education, and I think journalists are inherently educators.
Rosenblatt has spent a lifetime at the center of some of the defining moments of the 20th century. At the height of the Cold War, he worked on nuclear missile technology, then helped push humanity into space, before going on to create a dozen patents. For most, that would be enough, but for this 96-year-old scientist and inventor, it isn't.
Some of us are curious, some of us are not curious. It is for some of us are born to be entrepreneurs and some of us are born to be workers. There's something inside of you that makes you feel that you should do more than what you're doing.
Saul Rosenblatt was born to Ukrainian Jewish immigrants in Brooklyn in 1929, just months before the stock market crash, and grew up during the Depression.
There seemed to be like a gray cloud over everything. There was no exuberance or anything like that time.
As a boy growing up under that gray cloud, one book sparked his interest.
There was a book about Paul de Kruif, who somehow I got attached to the book, and it was about his adventures in science. And I recruited buddies from high school, and we even had a science club, and we read Scientific American and popular science.
By the time he reached college, the Korean War was underway.
I went to City College, but the only problem was that the draft board also knew I was in college. They said, if you stay, we will leave you alone.
When the war ended, Saul graduated, eventually getting a job with New York City. His title?
Quality Control Chemist, which is the lowest rung when you start a career in chemistry.
But it was there that a couple of great things happened. At work, he began to learn from those who recognized his potential.
These chemists were very liberal in their information, and they would put me under their wing, and they would teach me this and that. So I learned an awful lot from them.
The other great thing that happened, Saul met his wife at a New Year's Eve party.
She opened the door, just beautiful to me. She was just perfect. She was Sephardic, I was Ashkenazan. I loved her so much I was afraid, because she was such a different culture than me, that I didn't kiss her for 4 or 5 dates. And she wondered why. I said, I didn't want to take a chance. I knew the moment that we clicked is that I wanted to leave one night and it was raining outside, and she said, don't go, wait. And then she said, when I see the taillights of your car in the leaving, she said, I'm very unhappy about that. So I knew.
They were married 6 months later and for the next 69 years. Soon they had a new baby, and Saul had a new job.
I was recruited for my first job and we were off to California. And they gave me a title, Solid Rocket Development Chemist. Overnight, I jumped from a quality control to a rocket engineer.
The program was called Polaris, deploying nuclear missiles from submarines in the Cold War era. During that time, under Operation Paperclip, many German scientists were brought to the U.S., some with ties to the Nazi regime, others not. But for Saul, the distinction didn't matter in that moment, on that job.
Being Jewish and introduced to this German, my blood ran cold. Here, I'm working on this with this Nazi, and I guess I felt that the job was more important than my personal feelings.
When the job was done, their growing family returned east, and Saul's Polaris clearance carried over to a new role with NASA's Apollo program.
My title was a life support chemist, and I thought life support would be just that. I said, what happens if the astronauts are in a capsule and one of them gets sick? But my thinking went further than that, because I said, suppose we bring strange bacteria to the moon and vice versa.
While Saul's job at Apollo wasn't about germs, he never stopped worrying about the astronauts.
Every time I see these guys get into a capsule, I just worry about it. I said to myself, I have to develop something that will kill the germs safely. I came up with the choice of iodine. It comes from the seaweed and it comes from the earth. So if it's natural to the earth, it may be natural to the moon.
What began as an idea became a lifetime of invention with a dozen patents that he continues to work on today. And Saul is still hitting milestones, telling his story in his first book, From Missiles to Microbes, A Life of Invention, with a dedication to his wife and to City College. He's also set to receive one of City College's highest honors, championed in part by his good friend Dov Schlein, who joined the conversation.
And I was sitting next to Saul at the Shabbat dinner, and I was just fascinating in the stories that he was telling. And he learned that I was in the United States as a foreign student who came from Israel to City College, and he went to City College. I didn't have any money to pay for education, neither did he. And City College gave both of us a free education, which was amazing.
That Shabbat dinner was 20 years ago, and their friendship has only continued to grow. So when Saul's book was published, Dov thought his story should be shared with CUNY.
The Presidential Medal of City College had been awarded to some very distinguished individuals, Nelson Mandela, Hillary Clinton, Colin Powell, and Saul Rosenblatt now.
The curious boy from Brooklyn built a life of service and invention, devoted to ideas and to family. 69 years with his beloved wife Vicky, 3 children and grandchildren. And now, at nearly 97, when asked the secret to his health and longevity, he still turns to science.
I attribute it to being in an iodine environment for 30 years. The iodine kept me healthy. That's what I believe.
For Urban U, I'm Linda Simidian.
That's our show. Stories from across CUNY, powered by students and driven by ideas that shape our city. See you next time.